Hello, boys and girls. How are you all doing? I know I said I'll be posting more regularly, but I disappeared for 3 months. A word of advice from my experience: sometimes all open doors are not good opportunities for us. Sometimes they may derail you from your purpose. Having said that, I sincerely apologize for my absence. I'm back now. Let's get back to learning. If you're watching for the first time, welcome. So glad to have you with us. If you have been watching my videos, welcome back. Thank you for watching. In today's video, we're going to learn about the types of cells. As always, I am Dr. Ron, your friendly neighborhood zoologist. This is Biology with Dr. Ronald Nathaniel. Let's get right into it. All living things can be broadly categorized into two main types: prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells lack a nucleus, but they have a nucleoid region, whereas eukaryotic cells possess a nucleus. Prokaryotes are single-celled organisms, whereas eukaryotes are single-celled or they can be multicellular. The word prokaryote comes from ancient Greek. It is divided into two words: pro meaning before and karyon, which means nut or kernel. But in simple terms, it can be defined as before nuclei. In the two empire system, arising from the work of Edward Chaton, prokaryotes were classified under the empire Prokaryota. But in the three-domain system, based upon molecular analysis, prokaryotes are divided into two domains: bacteria, formerly known as eubacteria, and archaea, formerly known as archaebacteria. Organisms with a nuclei are placed in a third domain called eukaryota. Two empire, three domain, what does that mean? We'll learn about all that in a future video coming up shortly. The distinction between prokaryotes and eukaryotes was firmly established by microbiologists Roger Stainer and C.B. Van Niel in their paper The Concept of Bacterium, published in 1962. Their paper cites Edward Chaton's book Traités et Travaux Scientifiques, or in English, Scientific Title and Works, published in 1937, for using those terms and recognizing the distinction. Prokaryotes include bacteria and archaea, two of the three domains of life. Prokaryotic cells are simpler and smaller than eukaryotic cells, and they lack a nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. The DNA of prokaryotic cells consists of a singular chromosome that is in direct contact with the cytoplasm. The nuclear region in the cytoplasm is called the nucleoid. Most prokaryotes are the smallest of organisms, ranging from 0.5 to 2 micrometers in diameter. A prokaryotic cell has three regions. Enclosing the cell is called the cell envelope. This generally consists of a plasma membrane covered by a cell wall, which for some bacteria may be further covered by a third layer called a capsule. Though most prokaryotes have both a cell membrane and a cell wall, there are exceptions such as mycoplasma, a type of bacteria, and thermoplasma, a type of archaea, which only possess a cell membrane layer. The envelope gives rigidity to the cell and separates the interior from the cell and its environment, and this serves as a protective filter. The cell wall consists of peptidoglycan in bacteria and acts as an additional barrier against external forces. It can also prevent the cell from expanding and bursting. This is called cytolysis. This happens when osmotic pressure occurs due to a hypertonic environment. Some eukaryotic cells, like plants and fungal cells, also have a cell wall. Inside the cell is the cytoplasmic region that contains the genome, or the DNA, and also certain organelles like ribosomes and various sorts of inclusions. The genetic material is freely found in the cytoplasm. Prokaryotes can carry extra chromosomal DNA elements called plasmids, which are usually circular. Though they don't have a nucleus, the DNA is condensed into a region called the nucleoid. Plasmids encode additional genes such as antibiotic resistance genes. On the outside, some prokaryotes have flagella and pili that project from the cell surface. These structures are made up of proteins, and they help facilitate movement and communication between cells. Bacteria and archaea reproduce through asexual reproduction, usually by binary fission. Genetic exchange and recombination still occurs, but this is a form of a horizontal gene transfer and is not a replicative process, simply involving the transference of DNA between two cells, as in bacterial conjugation. Prokaryotic cells have various shapes. The four basic shapes of bacteria are cocci, a bacterium that is spherical or ovoid and is called a coccus, plural cocci. The examples would be Streptococcus and Staphylococcus. Bacilli, a bacterium with a cylindrical shape or rod shape, or a bacillus, plural bacilli. Spiral bacteria. Some rods twist into spiral shapes and are called as spirilla, singular spirillum. And Vibrio, which are comma-shaped bacteria. The eukaryotes constitute the domain Eukarya or Eukaryota. The word eukaryote comes from Greek, eu meaning well and karyote meaning nut or kernel, which is a common scientific way to talk about the nucleus of the cell. These are organisms that have membrane-bound organelles. All animals, plants, fungi, and even many unicellular organisms are eukaryotes. Eukaryotes represent a small minority of the number of organisms. However, generally, they are much larger in size. This means their collective biomass is much larger than that of prokaryotes. Eukaryotic cells contain membrane-bound organelles such as nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus. Eukaryotes can be either multicellular or unicellular. In comparison, prokaryotes are typically unicellular. Unicellular eukaryotes are sometimes called protists. Eukaryotes can reproduce both asexually, that is through mitosis, and sexually, through meiosis and gamete fusion or fertilization. Eukaryotes are organisms that range from microscopic cells, such as picozoans, that measure under 3 micrometers across, to animals like the blue whale, weighing up to 190 tons and measuring up to 33.6 meters or 110 feet long, or plants like the coast redwood that measures up to 120 meters or 390 feet tall. Multicellular eukaryotes include the animals, plants, and fungi. Eukaryotic cells are typically much larger than those of prokaryotes. The bacteria and the archaea having a volume of around 10,000 times greater. Eukaryotes represent a small minority of the number of organisms, but as many of them are much larger, their collective biomass, 468 gigatons, is far larger than that of the prokaryotes, which is 77 gigatons, with plants alone accounting for over 81% of the total biomass on Earth. Sexual reproduction requires a life cycle that alternates between a haploid phase with one copy of each chromosome in the cell and a diploid phase with 2 copies. In eukaryotes, haploid gametes are produced by meiosis. 2 gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. Eukaryotes have a life cycle that involves sexual reproduction alternating between a haploid phase with only one copy of each chromosome present in each cell and a diploid phase with 2 copies of chromosomes in each cell. The diploid phase is formed by the fusion of 2 haploid gametes such as egg and spermatozoa to form a zygote. This may grow into a body with its cells dividing by mitosis. Eukaryotes have a lower metabolic rate and longer generation times than prokaryotes because they are larger and therefore they have a smaller surface area to volume ratio. To sum it up, the similarities between prokaryotes and eukaryotes are this: they both have DNA, ribosomes which help them to make protein, they both have cytoplasm, a cell membrane to maintain homeostasis, and cell walls. The division between prokaryotes and eukaryotes is usually considered the most important distinction or difference among organisms. The distinction is that eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus containing their DNA, whereas prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. The differences are this: eukaryotic cells are more complex and larger, whereas prokaryotic cells are more simple because they are unicellular in nature. Prokaryotic cells do not have any nucleus. They do not have membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cells do have a nucleus and they do have membrane-bound organelles. Plant cells have a plasma membrane. Prokaryotic cells are usually much smaller than eukaryotic cells. Thus, we can say that prokaryotic cells have a larger surface area to volume ratio, giving them a higher metabolic rate and a higher growth rate, and as a consequence, a shorter generation time than that of the eukaryotes. In the coming videos, we will learn about the differences between plants and animal cells and how living things are classified and categorized. That's it for today, boys and girls. I'll see you soon in the next video.